This is Dateline, news and conversation. The show tonight is about what's going on in Armenia. As some of you know, I traveled to Armenia on 2 occasions. I got to know the country a little bit and traveled the countryside. And there's been some political happenings over the last, year or two or three. There's been war, and we're going to talk about that tonight with my good friend and my guest, Natalya Saghiyan. Natalya, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. And you're the only one we get any information from about what's happening in your country. Now, I want to start off with what I think is some really important current news: the impeachment process against Nikol Pashinyan. Bring us up to date.
Okay, this impeachment initiative has been going on since May this year. It was introduced by the smallest opposition fraction in the parliament. We have three units in the parliament. One is the the ruling party of Pashinyan, which is called Civil Contract. The other one is a fraction that consists of several parties, and it is led by the second president of Armenia, Robert Kocharian, who was also the first president of Nagorno-Karabakh and then Artsakh. And then he came to Armenia and was elected as a president. The smallest opposition party that actually initiated the impeachment process is led by the third president of Armenia, Serge Sargsyan, who resigned during the color revolution initiated by Pashinyan. So the smallest opposition fraction initiated this impeachment initiative. Unfortunately, the second opposition fraction, which is larger, it has 28 members, and the first one has only 6 members. They thought that, they expressed their position and said that it is not serious. They need 54 mandates to impeach Pashinyan, and the opposition, two fractions together, do not have the number. And the initiators said, look, there is no impeachment process in history that started with enough number of votes. It all started with smaller number of votes and succeeded eventually during, in the course of the process. So, since the parliamentary fractions could not come to an agreement, there was a decision made to bring together the extra parliamentary opposition. And this is what happened. And yesterday, a hearing was organized in the parliament, and our party was also present there. And all the participants of hearing actually came to a decision that this is absolutely necessary. And this is when the second opposition fraction, which wasn't considering it serious before, yesterday they actually gave their 28 signatures. So now we have 34 signatures under the paper that initiates impeachment process. For it to enter the agenda, we need 36. But we have two independent parliament members in our parliament that were previously in Pashinyan's party, and then they left the party but didn't put down their mandates. So they remain parliament members, but now they are independent. And the two of them were also present yesterday at the hearing. So now the necessary number 36 for it to enter agenda depends on decision of these two independent members. And we are all now, keeping our breath and waiting for their decision. They are also in opposition to Pashinyan, but they are kind of considering, I believe that now there is a big trade going on between them and Pashinyan, because he knows that this is a dangerous path, and sources tell us that the atmosphere and the situation inside Pashinyan's party is also not very healthy, because there are people who disagree with the course that he is leading Armenia with, but they are, I think, my opinion is that they are afraid to speak up because it's a one-man show. And sometimes when you look at how strangely their opinions coincide, it's like they read the same paper. When they make statements, parliament members of Pashinyan party, it's like they all received same message through, I don't know, WhatsApp or Telegram, and they're all reading the same paper. So we think that there is no democracy within his party either, just like there is no democracy in Armenia. So a hearing took place only yesterday. Further developments are to come. So we're waiting for further steps. As soon as there are 36 signatures under the initiative, and as soon as there is information that there are people inside Pashinyan's fraction who are ready to sign, the initiating fraction will continue with this process. I will let you know if anything develops.
Okay. How many votes are needed to impeach him?
54.
How many?
54.
54 are needed to impeach. Well, that'd be less than 20 votes. Well, it'd be very interesting to see whether the people in his party bolt and sign on to the other side. Anyway, I want to go to another political issue here. I read on one of the Russian online newspapers that a man by the name of Volodya Gregorian was shot dead. That was a week or so ago. He was a member of one of the opposition parties.
Yes.
Was this a political assassination or was it something else?
It was political in terms of why his security was not provided by the state. Look, he is an elected head of a quite large community. This community is near Yerevan, and it has 10,000 something people. And in April this year, this man won elections, winning over 6,000 votes. So he was pretty much a problem for Pashinyan. But he was shot as well. This is what I read in the news today. This is the police report that says that he was shot as an act of vendetta because his brother is now being accused of shooting somebody else's brother last year, and his brother is now under home arrest. So they couldn't get to his brother and they shot him. But the problem is that if the law enforcement has information that the brother of this person, who is a high rank state official, he's an elected leader of a large community, and there is this history of his brother being accused of killing somebody, so obviously they could have assumed that there will be a possibility for vendetta. So why wasn't his security provided by the state? Obviously, this is a failure of our law enforcement. In this, from this point of view, I think that probably it was political in terms of his security not being provided as it should.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Does every member of the parliament get bodyguards or personal security, or I don't understand?
No, only the speaker, as far as I know, the speaker gets security. And that's it, I think. But the parliament members, they can ask for if they think that if they receive threats or something. There is a special authority called State Security something, and they are supposed to react if there is an information coming from a parliament member that he or she receives a threat or something that they consider a threat. Then they will be provided with bodyguards and other procedures that will provide their safety.
What was the effect on the people of Armenia with this assassination? Was it a big deal, or was it people just shrugged their shoulders? What was the reaction?
For people of his community, where he was elected, obviously it was a big shock.
Yeah.
Yesterday was his funeral, and you could see, crowds of people, and people were really genuinely grieving because he was a loved head of community. They respected him, they loved him because he did what he had to do as a leader of this community. But in other regions of Armenia, you see, there is this psychological thing that I call desensibilization of population.
Mm.
After so many tragedies that we saw after the 44-day war, there was the war that actually today is the fifth, I wouldn't call it anniversary, but today is 5 years. 5 years ago, on this day, the 44-day war started in Artsakh. So we saw this war on 2021. We saw Azerbaijan military, the armed forces entering the sovereign territory of Armenia in Vayozdor region. And until now, they are occupying over 200 square kilometers of Armenia, and they still didn't remove their armed forces from there. And everything that has happened after that brought to desensibilization of our population. So now nobody is getting surprised anymore. Nobody. Because there was another incident. I think it was in Tavush region. One of the deputy head of community also died. Well, it wasn't a murder, but it was a young man, and he died also a few days ago. And it was like, okay, things happen. Like, I think this is the result of so many tragedies that we have faced. Um,
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate that analysis. Now, not many people in the rest of the world paid much attention to this piece of news, but Donald Trump addressed the United Nations earlier this week, and he talked for 54 or 56 minutes, rambled on. As an American, I'm embarrassed and ashamed at his
yeah.
whole performance, but he bragged about all kinds of things. And one of the things that he's been bragging about, because he wants the Nobel Peace Prize, he said he has brokered peace 7 times in the last 8 months. And one of the examples that he gave was between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And the Prime Minister of Armenia met with the president of Azerbaijan in the White House, with Trump orchestrating the deal. Now, I know this is not final yet. It has to be approved by Congress and then a final deal signed. But Russia and Iran were not very happy about that. Help us understand what's going on here, Natalya.
Yeah, well, this peace treaty, so-called peace treaty, that also Nicole Pashinyan is talking about, I don't know, for last 3 years. Yeah, on August 8th this year, Ilham Aliyev, president of Azerbaijan, and Nicole Pashinyan, prime minister of Armenia, met in the White House. This meeting was mediated by Donald Trump, and they signed a piece of paper which expresses solely interests of Azerbaijan and zero interest of Armenia. The funny thing, it would be funny if it wasn't so sad. The Armenian text and English text differ from each other, because in Armenian text we see that it is presented as a trilateral paper, but in reality it is a document signed between Armenia and Azerbaijan, witnessed by the President of the United States, which means that the United States is not a mediator, so carries no responsibility whatsoever if any party of this treaty breaks the treaty. But in Armenian translation, it is presented as if it is a trilateral paper, which is a shameful manipulation. Okay, I understand it. Many other people who can read English understand it. But the way it was presented to Armenians for the first week or so, it was so shameful. Of course, after we raised awareness and after we started talking about it and raised our voices that there is something is wrong with these two documents because they are different, they have changed the text. And now on the official website of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you can see an exact translation. But for the first week or so after the meeting, there was a completely manipulative text published at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs official webpage, which is such a shame. So Aliyev basically received all he wanted, and he got all his interests carried about in this paper. Pashinyan didn't even talk about prisoners of war, which are now being held in Baku. And I don't mean soldiers that are there for 5 years after the 44-day war is over. I mean also political and military elite of Artsakh, which in fact surrendered. These people surrendered to Azerbaijan in order to let people, civilians, leave Artsakh unstopped. This was the deal. And this deal was announced by also representative of Russian peacekeepers that were at that time in Artsakh. So this was the deal. Aliyev would allow civilians to leave Artsakh in September 2023, from 19th to 23rd of September, when Azerbaijan implemented the so-called anti-terrorist operation in Artsakh, where over 100,000 people fled from there. The deal was as such: the political and military leadership of Artsakh surrenders to Aliyev, and now they are being kept in Baku, and fake trials are being carried out, and they are being accused of separatism and terrorism and who hell knows what else, just to let civilians flee Artsakh unstopped and safe, come to Armenia. This was the deal. So Pashinyan said no word about these people. He said no word about Azerbaijan military forces leave the sovereign territory of Armenia. Nothing of that was discussed. So everything that this paper represents is the interest of Azerbaijan. We gain nothing of it.
Yeah. What I read, and I'm going to quote it here, the part of the agreement supposedly, allegedly includes granting the United States exclusive rights to develop the Trump route for international peace and prosperity for the next 99 years. Is that part of the deal? It's obvious what the United States wants out of this. It doesn't want peace. Well, yeah, it doesn't want people fighting, but now they want this access where everything from oil and goods can be shipped now through Azerbaijan, avoiding Armenia. Is that correct?
The route, as they call it, which is in fact a corridor, and now they want it to be an extraterritorial corridor, because if it is really supervised by an American company, it will in fact be an extraterritorial corridor. So Armenia will have no authority over that corridor, obviously, right? What they want is a free access through Turkey Nakhichevan, which is an exclave of Azerbaijan, through this corridor to Azerbaijan and through Caspian Sea to the Central Asia. This is what they want, because at the moment they have no logistics to transport whatever they want to transport, which means it may be weapons, terrorists, radical Islamists, whatever they want to get to Central Asia to start pushing China and Russia. This is what they want this corridor for in the first place. And then they want to cut the southern part of Armenia, where the border with Iran goes. They want to cut it off from the route that goes from Russia through Georgia, through Armenia to Iran, and through Persian Gulf further to India and China. This is the so-called north-south route. So this Trump's route crosses the north-south route, which will evidently and eventually become a significant obstacle, because at the moment, the north-south logistic route works perfectly. And what they want to do is they want another road that would cross the existing road and prevent Russia from having its logistics through Armenia to Iran and the Persian Gulf and further on.
Yeah. Well, it's obvious that the filthy hands of the United States are all over this, and to further destabilize the region.
Yeah.
And Russia and Iran obviously are opposed to this. Is Russia powerless to do anything about this, Natalya?
No, I don't think Russia is powerless. I just think that Russia is not exposing all the cards, which is, I think, a wise thing to do. Because if we, as you mentioned, Trump wants a Nobel Peace Prize. But if I may remind just one brief story that happened in 1973, the Paris Treaty between the North Vietnam and South Vietnam. This is when Kissinger received his Nobel Peace Prize. What they did is they signed a fine deal, a perfect peace agreement with exchange of prisoners all to all, and sovereignty and the right of self-determination, and everything was written in that paper. And it lasted for 3 years. When the president in the United States changed, the North Vietnam just stormed South Vietnam, and it all ended in 1 week. We have a precedent in history, and nobody can guarantee that. Trump has some 3 more years to rule, and after 3 years nobody knows who will be the president of the United States. And this piece of paper that is signed, witnessed by President Trump, I don't think that it will have any power after Trump is not reelected, and I don't think he will be reelected. He cannot, because he cannot take run for the office 2 times, one after another, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of questions whether Trump will stay in his current position throughout the next 3 years. A lot of jokes are being made about it. He's not a very healthy person. I mean, he's you could call him morbidly obese. Reportedly, he just loves McDonald's double quarter pounders and cheese with large fries and a 16-ounce Coca-Cola, which is enough to kill him. And people are questioning his mental capacity. They're even beginning to say that he is in cognitive decline. Maybe the onset of Alzheimer's or dementia, because of the way he can't remember things. And well, who knows? But I'm of the opinion that
because President Biden was also, he looked obviously like not very healthy person. greeting his invisible friends in front of the cameras, which is a sad thing to say. I mean, it's really a shame for the United States. And now he's being replaced by Donald Trump, who also doesn't look very healthy. Because when he made several statements about this peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and several times he used term Albania instead of Armenia, and Azerbaijan instead of Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
Okay, the best thing I can think about it is that he just doesn't care about it at all, and he doesn't bother remembering names of the countries. But probably there's something more serious behind it.
Well, I'm sure there's something really serious about it. The president of the United States can't remember the name of two countries, and it's more than two countries. And he probably can't find too many countries in the world on a map.
Yep.
Anyway, I think I don't know whether people in your circles are talking about what's happening in the United States. Uh, Donald Trump has uh, seriously divided the population. It's more divided now than it ever was. His rhetoric is, well, I would say, is insightful. He's calling whoever he thinks, the Democrats or the left or radicals, enemies of him in the United States. The United States is 37 to 38 trillion dollars in debt, goes up $1 trillion a couple of times each year. The United States is overextended all over the world, 800 bases, tens of thousands of troops. That's incredibly costly. And a lot of people are saying that the United States will collapse economically this year. And if not this year, next year. These are economists on both sides of the Atlantic, in Europe and in the United States. I, for one, an American now living in Russia, don't recognize the country of my birth. I cannot believe what's happening there today. And I'm really convinced that the trajectory that the United States is on is not sustainable in the short term. So that could change things politically all over the world and geopolitically. We'll just have to wait that one out and see what happens. All right, I want to get back to Armenia now. Pashinyan, a few months ago, arrested a Russian, is he Armenian? Karapetian?
He is of Armenian origin, but he is the citizen of Russian Federation.
Okay.
He was born in Armenia, he was raised in Armenia, and then at some point of his life, he moved to Russia, built his empire over there.
Yeah, let me set this up. So he's a Russian Armenian businessman. I think he would qualify as an oligarch because I did some research on him. He's got a group that's called the Tashir Group.
Yes.
In that group are some 200 companies. They're involved in construction, logistics, transportation. They're in communications. They're in cinemas. They're in restaurants and hotels. And supposedly, he employs 30,000 people in these 200 companies. In Armenia, I read, and I don't know if it's the only electric company, but an electric company in Armenia, which he owns. He's also known as a philanthropist. He built a hospital somewhere in Armenia, and he is alleged to have aided Nagorno-Karabakh in the defense of Nagorno-Karabakh while they were at odds with Azerbaijan. So the question I have is, Pashinyan, obviously threatened by him politically, And because
Mhm.
a man of such, well, when you're an oligarch, you have a lot of power and a lot of
Yes.
influence. Um,
Mhm.
and he's a big supporter of the Armenian Apostolic Church.
Yes.
And Pashinyan, your dictator, and I think that's what he is, had him arrested. Is he
Mhm.
still in custody? Is he still in jail?
Yes, he's still in custody because his case is still being investigated, and he's still kept in custody. Yes,
So,
he's a big philanthropist, and not only he. This Tashir group uh, purchased electric networks of Armenia in 2015. When same Soros fund sponsored activists in Armenia started rioting in the streets because electricity was to the price for electricity was to be raised by 2 drams. This is like really, really minor amount of money. So they wanted to bring the price up by, I don't know, probably something like that would equal for Americans, that would equal 2 cents for 1 kilowatt. And I believe that he was an organized series of protests in the streets of Yerevan, which was called Electric Yerevan. And at that time, the president was Ser Sargsyan, and he was accused of all of the sins that were possible that we could possibly imagine. And yes, the electric networks of Armenia were working poorly at that time, and they at that time they belonged to a Russian electric company. So President Ser Sargsyan negotiated with Samvel Karapetyan and convinced the latter to purchase the electric networks of Armenia and to elaborate a roadmap on how to bring it to a better position. Because obviously, the state is unable to run such a big business. It has to be a private business for it to be profitable and for it to offer services at a reasonable price and at a reasonable quality. So this is exactly what Tashir group of companies did. They purchased electric networks of Armenia, uh, and they did a good job because today we have much better services provided to the population than it was in 2015, obviously. But he was arrested after he made a statement in support of Armenian Apostolic Church, which I think was just used then as an excuse. He just gave a reason to Pashinyan to arrest him. If it wasn't for that statement, they would have found another reason.
so
Uh,
do you think? Uh, I think this must have been political. I think Pashinyan was really threatened by him, and I'll follow that up with I read again in Russian media that he either threatened to or already started a new political party, and he was going to run for prime minister. Is there any truth to any of that?
yes, there is a new political power which is associated with Samvel Karapetyan. Samvel Karapetyan personally is he will not be able to run for as a candidate for prime minister because he's not a citizen of Armenia. The constitution clearly states that only only a citizen of Armenia and a person who lived in Armenia for the last 4 years before elections
Oh,
can run for the prime minister. And even people with double citizenship are not allowed. So he personally will not be able to do that. But his nephew, Narek Karapetyan, is now the face of this new initiative. Um, Probably he will be the leader of this new political power. But yes, they are making their first steps in the political arena. We will see how it goes.
let me ask you this: in the United States, money uh, buys politicians. Money, you can only get elected to not only a federal position, but even state positions, Congress people, senators,
Mm.
judges, if you don't have the support of billionaires, you don't get elected. Is the
Yep.
same thing at play in Armenia? And if so, at some point, this Samvel Karapetyan is going to have an enormous influence with the money that he can throw into the next political campaign.
Yes, the pretty much the same scheme works here in Armenia, but in a little different way, because if you have enough support from people who hold a lot of like big capitals in their hands, a lot of money, obviously your chances to be successful in politics are much higher here in Armenia. Um, yeah, money solves all problems, in fact. And of course, Samvel Karapetyan, within this framework, presents he is a real threat for Pashinyan because Pashinyan's rating is rocking down now. And he knows that the only token that he had left in his pocket is this peace initiative, because he's now threatening people with, if I don't get elected in 2026, there will be no peace, and Azerbaijan will attack us again. They will kill us all. We will all die. All these rhetorics. This is the only thing that he has left in his hands to manipulate with this. If it's not me, then there will be no peace, and we will face war again. Because of people have already understood that Armenia, there is no rule of law in Armenia, and there's no democracy, because even the Freedom House actually published its recent report on Armenia. And I think that Pashinyan was very sad when he read it, because it really is a sad document to read about Armenia, which was really making huge steps in democratic development in a good sense, not in the way that we're used to use the word democracy now as a tool to manipulate um, governments in smaller countries. No, in real democracy. But now we're making steps back because Pashinyan was an authoritarian, and now he's moving towards becoming a full scale dictator. Because the recent scandal that he um, made us all see was when he said I am the government. The government is me. It's like the Louis the 14th. L'état c'est moi. That's what he said. Yeah, one of the French kings. And the same was Pashinyan when he was opposed by one of his officials, I think from Ministry of Energy or something, saying that the Copenhagen arbitrage court uh, made a ruling about these processes that are taking place regarding electric networks of Armenia. And it ruled that the government cannot just nationalize it, because it's not a property that belongs to one man. It's a property that belongs to a group of companies. Some of them are investment companies from Cyprus. So it's not just like I take what I want. And Pashinyan said, I don't care what Copenhagen arbitrage court says, because the government is me. I'm the government, and whoever opposes my opinion can resign immediately today and say goodbye to the government. These are his words. You can find it in the internet.
Yeah, well, sounds to me like Donald Trump.
Yep, pretty much.
The unitary executive is the term
Yeah.
that Dick Cheney coined so that George Bush did not have to consult with Congress, uh, basically did away with checks and balances. And
Mm.
this is what Trump is using today, is this philosophy or this judicial loophole to be the unitary executive, the only one that speaks for the United States of America. Well, I want to stay on this for a minute because money buys votes. Now, I don't know, but I'm going to just speculate that if I were Samvel Karapetyan, I would probably have somebody trying to influence the parliament and those
Mhm.
members to vote for impeachment. And if that's too much of a stretch, I would guess that with all his money, he could do what they're doing in the United States: control of the media, uh, deciding who he's going to support that's going to advance his agenda, because that's how it works in America. I have to think it's probably got to be working the same way there. Do you think any of that's possible, or am I just really reaching?
Um, it would be possible as a scheme. Of course, it's logical to assume that he could do that with all his money. But there is a question. There is one thing that we should not forget. He is the citizen of the Russian Federation. He's got his almost entire business is in Russian Federation. So probably he's not so independent in whatever he wants to do here in Armenia. So probably he also has to consult with people somewhere high up in Russian Federation about his steps in Armenia. This is what we have to keep in mind. That's number one. And number two, about control over media. In small countries like Armenia, it would seem to be easier than in the United States, but in fact, it's more difficult. For example, at the moment, we have only two media companies that have license to broadcast all over Armenia, because this licensing process is totally controlled by the state. So if Nicole Pashinyan doesn't want somebody to control a media resource that broadcasts all over Armenia, that resource will not get the license. No matter how much you comply the conditions to get the license, you will just not get the license. That's it. And you will not be able to broadcast outside Yerevan. So
Gotcha.
you will have no, that's it, because it's a small country and it's all controlled by one person.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Uh, my last point for discussion tonight is related to what we've been talking about all evening. Um, Karapetian supposedly was arrested because he was trying to incite rebellion, opposition to Pashinyan, but two members of the Armenian Apostolic Church, I'm not talking about just ordinary Armenians, I'm talking about two bishops. This was all over the news, even in Russia. Uh, Archbishop Bagarat and
Yes.
Archbishop Mikhail uh, were in prison. There was video of these two bishops uh, being arrested, being called for investigation and never released. Two questions here. Are they still in jail? And is this another ongoing investigation?
Yes.
My second question is, has the Armenian Apostolic Church, which is the official religion of Armenia, has it done anything to get the Armenian Apostolic Christians organized in opposition to what's going on?
Yes, these two archbishops are still in custody, and they are being accused for an attempt to organize a coup d'etat or a terrorist something, because I don't know, they published pieces of a phone conversation between one of the archbishops and somebody, where the Archbishop Mikhail Japahian expressed opinions about how Pashinyan has to go. And this seems to be the major proof used by the prosecution. But yes, these both bishops are now in custody, and this is an ongoing investigation, which is a shame. In fact, yes, it's a shame. Regarding Armenian Apostolic Church uniting, um, Armenians in Armenia. Well, Armenian Apostolic Church made several statements calling for um, a committee, and because Pashinyan, what he did is he tried to separate the um, people in Armenia and create this gap between people who support church and people who do not support church, even though the latter are a minority, those who do not like openly criticize and do not support church, and most of them are of pro-Western, um, you know, pro-Western orientated people. And he made everything to make this gap even wider and to make this controversies between these two groups of people sharper. Even it seemed like he wants to push it to a civil, not civil war, but problems inside Armenia. And this is why Armenian Apostolic Church decided, this is my opinion, to keep its position as a peacemaker for the society, trying to unite people, even those who do not consider themselves Christian, do not practice, are not believers, are agnostic or atheist, doesn't matter. Because this was the address of Armenian Apostolic Church, that we do not want to make this conflict deeper between these two groups within the Armenian society. We want you all to calm down and be united in our struggle for national interests. So at the moment, Armenian Apostolic Church, this is how I see it from the media and everything, just minds its own business. Catholicos of all Armenians very recently visited Vatican, which is something that we should take very serious. Because Vatican is not just the smallest city, smallest country in the world. This is a place where a lot of power is concentrated. And Vatican has tried to get control over Armenian Apostolic Church for decades. The reasons, we will never know for sure what the reasons are. But lots of people who are into conspiracy theories assume that this is because the Vatican wants to possess what Armenian Apostolic Church possesses. I don't know if it's about the money or if it's about, I don't know, gold, whatever, doesn't matter. But we know that the fact is the Vatican was trying to gain control over Armenian Apostolic Church for decades. And we know that the problems that Armenian Apostolic Church is facing now in Jerusalem, for example, because Armenian Apostolic Church in Jerusalem owns several pieces of land there. And now for last year, as a bare minimum, there are these conflicts going on between the city of Jerusalem and Armenian Apostolic Church over these pieces of land, which there's nothing significant about it. It's just that they want to take it away from Armenian Apostolic Church. So if we bring all the facts together, it's just, I think it's a topic for one entire interview, for another show. But probably for those who will watch this, it will be interesting to do some research about it and see how the story developed between Armenia and Vatican. This is why I'm putting a stress here.
Yeah, I'd be very interested in that, and we'll communicate offline. Keep me abreast of what's going on. I'll see if I
Okay.
can do any research on my own. Uh, Natalya, thanks so much again for joining me. There's hardly any news. I would say almost nothing that's getting out to my audience. These are people that are mostly in the United States. There are some Russians, but it's primarily people in the United States. And I want to keep on top of this because it's such an important story when one thinks about what the agenda of the United States of America has been and is in your part of the world. So I want to keep on top of that, Natalya. Thank you so much.
Thank you for always inviting me, because it's also it's important for us too to raise our voice and spread information about what's going on